some different outdoor dining options. So again, thanks for joining us. According to the Journal of Forestry, shoppers claim that they will spend an additional 9 to 12% more for goods and services in central business districts with trees. A healthy space is vital to the success of a downtown. So this is just one example of the importance of downtown environment. The way that our downtown is structured is not just an environmental effect, but it has an impact on consumer spending, community well-being, and an overall financial impact, which is really what we're focused on here when we think about growing the city, helping the city now, but growing the city in our future. So though an outdoor space can help small businesses through the remainder of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this was, of course, the primary focus of our last discussions on an outdoor space almost a year ago now, if you can believe it. It can also have sustainable, lasting value, benefiting businesses, visitors, residents, and the community in the long term, when we have this pandemic in our rearview mirrors. Closing the Franklin Street extension, which is what we're thinking of proposing today, will create an area focused on people's experiences. Visitors and locals alike will be able to stay, shop, connect, contribute to the community's economic vitality, which will in turn support the local economy. This project will take all of us. For example, our Economic Development Director, Jana, who's on the call today, and the City of Ellsworth have been working on the complex municipal logistics, and they are complex. And as well, Heart of Ellsworth, who's putting on the call today, hopes to further assist their work by communicating with all of you on this call, communicating with the city, and figuring out what we all actually want from an outdoor space, what we want from a space like this, and how we might use and manage the space moving forward. So with that, I will introduce Ann Ball, who will say a few words. Ann Ball is from the Maine Downtown Center, Senior Program Director at the Maine Downtown Center. And as many of you know, in March of 2020, Ellsworth became the 18th city in Maine to be accepted as an affiliate community of the Maine Downtown Center and Main Street America, the MSA program, and has been by our side, guiding us, helping us the entire time. So thank you, Ann, for being here today. Ann?
Hi, I've met many of you. Thank you for all your good work in Ellsworth. And I just want to say, we have so many communities that are having these conversations between their downtown affiliates and their municipalities and their main streets and their affiliates. And we have lots of examples from communities that have tried things that are working really well, that are going to stick after the pandemic. Biddeford, Belfast, Lisbon, and Augusta even has done drive-in movie nights with the cooperation of their municipality. So it's really nice to be here and see Jana here and Cara here, and your whole team of restaurant owners and downtown business owners to really think about what makes sense. And John was absolutely right. Trees, placemaking, activating your downtowns, and Nat will be our AmeriCorps fellow, will be sharing some examples. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Ann. And just before we move on, some housekeeping stuff. You can put questions throughout this conversation in the chat box. You can also use your hand raising button and use your reaction button, which, makes for a more lively feel to the conversation. So with that, I want to introduce Nat Blackford, who is the Main Street Fellow at the Maine Downtown Center. He works on statewide projects with a focus on increasing resilience and advancing equity in downtowns around the state. These include working to collect best practices in pandemic response and recovery, building out member resources on the Maine Downtown Center website, and conducting small projects in the Main Street and affiliate communities across the state this spring and summer. Nat, and I think you have a presentation as well to share.
Yes, 1 second, let me share my screen. Okay, so y'all should be seeing some slides right now. So I just wanted to, as Ann mentioned, there have been, a lot of examples of different types of outdoor dining across Maine over the last year. And I wanted to walk through kind of 2 examples, and then also bring out some kind of lessons learned and things to be thinking about based on the experience of other communities that have gone through this process in the past and are going through it again alongside you. So the first example would be what's happening in Rockland. So in 2020, Rockland closed down part of Route 1 in their downtown area. They there they have a 2-lane one-way street through the middle, and they closed down, I believe, one of the lanes and then also some of the side streets. And for 2021, they're considering kind of a smaller project focused more on a parklet model. And parklets are kind of a form of dining and of reclaiming parking spaces alongside of downtown. So they're often these kind of curb height platforms that kind of fill the space of a parking space. Some of the things that they learned in Rockland from 2020 is that it's really important to be communicating the project with the community from the beginning. You don't want to surprise anyone with what you're doing, and it's really helpful to have people involved in kind of the planning process as well as kind of the implementing. Kind of following on that theme of communication, signage is really important. Making sure that people understand what the new traffic patterns are, if the traffic patterns have changed, and that they know. So both signage from a traffic perspective, but also signage to help direct people to kind of what is public space, what is private space, what resources that may be in the street or on the sidewalk that are kind of open to the public, or that might be more reserved for patrons of a particular restaurant or business. That can be really important, just so people have a clear understanding of what the space is and who it's for at different times of day. Another thing that they learned is that it's really important to make the space look attractive. One of the kind of common sites you see around a lot of these kind of open streets ideas or opening up streets to pedestrians is you see these Jersey barriers. And you can see one in this picture of downtown Rockland. It's painted green here. When those aren't painted, they're not particularly attractive. I was on a call or a webinar in Portland based on their experiences with open streets and kind of public dining, and someone likened it to the Berlin Wall. So it's really great if you can get some paint on them and make sure that they look attractive and kind of inviting for people. Similarly, doing things like painting sidewalks to the extent that you can just can really help activate the space and help make people feel welcome. And having those kind of colorful spaces, I was talking with someone in Rockland 2 days ago, and she said that they find that having the sidewalks painted can also have somewhat of a traffic calming effect if there is kind of traffic in that area. They also felt that it's really important to consider how the space will be used over the course of the day. So depending on where it is, if it's a space that's mostly for restaurants, lots of restaurants might only be open for certain parts of the day. So, what is the space going to be used for the rest of the time? That's an important thing to be thinking about, just so that people, if you close down, a part of a street, you want to make sure that, people have a clear expectation of kind of what's going to be going on there at different times of the day. And then finally, their project involved, changing the traffic patterns on part of Route 1. And so that involved a lot of, I believe, DOT work with DOT to kind of make sure that happens. And so it sounds like in Ellsworth, you're not thinking about doing that with Route 1, but thought it was worth mentioning because, it's another community along the coast of Maine that Route 1 does pass through. Rockland is kind of going through a pretty interesting process right now with an ad hoc committee in kind of developing a plan for their downtown parking and traffic in 2021. And so I just thought this was a great example of, in this picture here, you can see they're thinking about public safety, economic vitality, parking, deliveries, public access, traffic and pedestrians, communications, signage, public access, So there's a lot of different aspects to this. They have a lot of resources on the website that they are kind of currently using to organize this work. The link's right here, and I can share this set of slides with Kara after the meeting. But that might be an important place to go look for resources and even to follow along their process a little bit. Another example would be what they did in Biddeford. So in Biddeford, their Main Street organization, which is the heart of Biddeford, worked with the mill owner, one of the mill owners in town, and also the municipality to build a outdoor public dining area in a private parking lot. I don't remember exactly how many parking spaces it used up, but it created seating for 24 people. And the director there, Delilah, kind of likened it to the idea of like the food court in a mall. You know, it's a public dining area that people can bring food to from, you know, all the different restaurants in the town, and it kind of creates that public space. So that's kind of a different model. They found that, you know, there were direct increases in activity for nearby businesses, and kind of it created a lot of, the process of putting the project together created a lot of connections between different organizations in the town that they think is going to be a real asset moving forward. So one of the big learnings from their project was that they had a professional design firm kind of draw up what the space could look like. And they found that visual extremely helpful in kind of getting all the different stakeholders on board and behind the project. And the project was kind of implemented using, you know, municipal funds. There's some details up here on kind of what they spent that money on: equipment, heaters, seating, staffing. And they had to staff the place because they had a BYOB permit so that alcohol could be consumed in the court. And that was particularly important for some of the local breweries and distilleries that didn't have space for outdoor dining adjacent to their business. But that meant they had to staff the space. And then finally, just some kind of other considerations. It's important to think about the timing of street closures. You know, in some communities, this isn't, you know, the street isn't closed, you know, continuously from the beginning of the project till the end of it. They maybe will open it up on, you know, weekdays or, you know, in the daytime. So that's another thing you can be thinking about as you kind of work towards a plan for Ellsworth. Allowing for deliveries, space for curbside pickup if a street is closed to vehicles. That's particularly important, you know, in this time we're living in now. And then just finally to reiterate, you know, communication is key. So between different members of the community, businesses, residents, municipal officials, kind of at all stages of the project. So during the planning, during the project, it's really helpful to do some sort of reflection after the project and get feedback on kind of what worked well. And then finally, it's important to kind of do PR and make sure that you're engaging the community so that they know what's going on and know to come downtown to the space you're creating. And that's all I have to share for you right now. But thanks so much for inviting us to speak, and we're really excited to see what happens in Ellsworth this summer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nat. We really appreciate it. If anybody has any questions for Nat, you can put them in the chat box now. It's really fascinating and exciting to imagine some of those options as possibilities in Ellsworth. And of course, it's very helpful to understand how they work in other towns so that we can not have to necessarily reinvent the wheel if we want to try to duplicate some of them. So with that, I'd like to pass the mic to Jana Richards, who can give us a bit of an update on what the City of Ellsworth has been working on for this project. Jana?
Thanks, John. Hi, guys. How are you? Hope everyone's doing well. Hopefully you can all hear me. I have unmuted myself. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about this because this was an idea that was certainly considered last year, but it was really early on in the pandemic, and it was so new that there were a lot of logistics and questions that the city still had about creating a social space, but still a safe space. And so I think those questions and all of the unknowns sort of made us hesitant to move forward last year. This year, there's a lot more confidence in moving forward with the plan. And in hearing that it was still a space, an outdoor dining space, or just an outdoor space that could be closed off for public use, that some business owners wanted to make happen, myself, along with the city manager, Glenn, who's right there on the call, as well as our public works director, Lisa Sekulich, began to create a list of materials and items that we felt were necessary to safely and securely close off Lower Franklin Street and make it a functional space for outdoor public dining. So we've thought through a lot of the logistics of operations, and so how it would operate as a public dining space. I'm really happy that Nat brought up some of the things like signage and painting of Jersey barriers and things like that, because those are things that we have certainly considered and put into our plan. And so it makes me feel like we're doing things right. So thank you for that, Nat. We need that backing. And so, so we've really thought through a lot of these logistics and through a list of a lot of the different material needs that we need. Also reached out to one of the building owners. So this space is obviously in between the JB Atlantic building, where the Heart of Ellsworth has utilized that space for a few years now. So you guys are in there. The other side is a building that is owned by the Grants, Roger Grant. So I have reached out to him just to make sure that, things are okay as a building property owner. We've reached out to Elizabeth's, the business that's on the first floor. And then upstairs, there's some private office space and apartment. So we were able to reach out to the private office and work with them and just making sure that we're accommodating any needs or concerns that the abutting businesses or property owners may have. So we're feeling good about a lot of the things that we've accomplished so far. And at this point, it's just about finalizing the list and the budget for the project. And I'm getting prepared to work more with the city manager and get the council's involvement to move the plan forward. The timeline that we're sort of looking at is a closure from hopefully Memorial Day through the end of September. And because, Memorial Day, it seems like it's so far away, but a lot of these materials need to be ordered like ASAP because some of the things that we're considering need to actually be made. So picnic tables, our Public Works office has really great picnic table makers, which I learned through this entire process. And so that obviously becomes a cost saving for us at the city. But they need the time to be able to do it. So we have to get materials ordered sooner rather than later. So working on this now is really important to be able to meet that hopefully Memorial Day timeline. And yeah, so I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm happy to discuss any of what has been done so far on our end with all of you, and happy to hear your thoughts. And if you don't mind, John, I'd just like to give Glenn the opportunity if he wants to add on to anything that I just said. And I just want to thank you for giving us the time to speak today.
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jana. So over here in City Hall, we're excited about the prospect, and we were excited about it last year, and we're disappointed that it didn't come to fruition. But our basic goal here is to establish the area and equip it with the basic needs, whether it be trash receptacles, picnic tables, barricades that are going to be not Jersey wall unsightly, so it will be an inviting space. And then, if there are additional wishes, hopes, desires of the community, the downtown community specifically, but the entirety of the community, then, those are things that we can look to add, discuss, and, potentially bring into the space or utilize the space, beyond just an outdoor dining, which is kind of the basic concept of it. And beyond that, as Jana and I talked about, future possibilities for that space, because we're all kind of in agreement that it's not necessarily, a good use of that space to have it as a road. It's not really needed for that purpose. So, could, as John stated earlier in his little introduction, could we eventually down the road look to, convert that into a space that has some green and introduces some more, some green into our downtown, whether that be trees or lawn or other areas. So, that's all potential. And I think the great part about this concept is, we start small and then look to maybe go big, later on. And by doing this in a sensible way and showing the usefulness, showing the vitality of it going forward, then when we want to say, hey, we want to invest X number of dollars to rip up this pavement and do all these other things to this space, we have a basis and we have some we can show that it's used, it's vital to the downtown, and it's a true benefit to the downtown. And so we can much more easily justify additional resources being spent on that space, and potentially even the eventual complete elimination of that space as a road. So I think this is a critical step in that process. And as Jana said, we've put a lot of effort into putting together a plan that really checks off all the boxes of the basics, and then certainly additional if additional resources from the community, particularly from the downtown, want to go into the space. I think with conversation and discussion, I think we're open to that. But I think it's key to just get it in place, get it functional, and then we can show all the benefits of utilizing it in this manner. So that's kind of our approach. That's kind of our thought process. And I'll be quiet now and let you all discuss.
Thank you so much. First, thanks. We have a great appreciation for the complexities of all the logistics that go into something like this. And it's just amazing that you guys are putting the effort in. So very much appreciated. We'll have some time just after the polling and communication to have more open-ended questions for the city. But just going off of what City Manager Mosier was saying, in his concept of, or his notion of proof of concept, or how does this get off the ground? What are the first steps? We'd like to pose some polls to see what, some of you are downtown business owners, residents, or business owners just outside of the downtown area. So what are those first steps? What sorts of things are you interested in seeing? The first question we have for you is, what type of infrastructure does a downtown dining space need, in your opinion? And this is multiple choice. So please take a couple minutes, get your thinking caps on and greased up. And yeah. Just take another few seconds here to fill in the polls. The second question was, what does your business and community need from this initiative? And we'll take just another 30 seconds to a minute to finish this up.
Is anyone else having problems clicking the submit button?
You have to do the whole survey and then you can submit it.
So I'm hearing
Thinker.
if you're having trouble, you might need to scroll down on your poll and select the second and then submit. As a useful song. So we'll take a look at the results now. If I'm reading this correctly, it seems that for the first question, what type of infrastructure does a downtown dining space need, in your opinion? Seeing a lot of results here for picnic tables, which is what Jana had mentioned, getting Public Works to help build to save some costs. Trees, flower pots, hardscaping, that goes back to sort of the introduction when we talked about plants and trees adding to the space. And what does your business and community need from this initiative? Scrolling down, it's sort of across the board here for a consistent, safe space for visitors and residents, a cleaning plan, public-private partnership between businesses, cities, nonprofits, et cetera, and a community gathering space. So, you know, this will obviously, this is being recorded and we'll take this information down and utilize it to the best of our abilities. And this is also a way to sort of get our thinking caps going, as I said, so that we can get into the open forum. So I want us to focus on this open forum, and I'll have you click your hand raise button, and then we can go that way so we're not all overwhelming the Zoom here. But we're going to be focusing on what are your main concerns with this space, you know, whether logistical or otherwise. How would outdoor space help your business? If you have a business, would this be helpful for you short-term, long-term? How would you or your business use the space? And how would these uses specifically benefit your business? And how would these uses specifically benefit our community, both in the short and long term? So there's a lot here. We don't have to get to all of it. And if you prefer, you can type your responses in the chat box and we will read them. So with that, we'll open it up. I'm seeing Peter Leone, and you can raise your hand in the video screen or click the hand raise button. Either way, go ahead.
I don't know where the hand raise button is, but anyway, I think it's great. Glenn, it was kind of interesting that you brought up the idea of this becoming something beyond just a COVID kind of experiment. It's been kind of a conversation with Heart of Ellsworth for as long as I'm involved. So we're talking about over 5 years. We've been talking about that as a wonderful park. But I just wanted to mention, because it really hasn't come up when Jana was talking about what we need. Having a lot of experience with Taste of Ellsworth, the first year we just had tables. And we had the plants and all that. It looked very nice, but it was very warm. It was having that sun beating down on. So the idea of having either umbrellas or a canopy, I think, is really important. The one negative about the umbrellas, I would imagine, is living in downtown Ellsworth, it's really windy. And it would mean that somebody would have to constantly take them up and down and making sure that the tables, that they don't blow over. The canopy, an open canopy, is something that not only looks beautiful and kind of looks exciting just passing through, it just, it's probably going to be a lot more expensive, but it might be worth the investment. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Actually, jumping off of your environmental concerns, we had a chat box comment from hospice volunteers of Hancock County. First question about what an outdoor seating area needs. We need to remember that we'll need some way to control bugs. Obviously, some months more than others, but that is a great point. Another comment we had from Lorena Stearns is a concern about labeling this project with the term outdoor dining, as it is really about having an outdoor gathering space. Yeah, so the name and the signage will matter in that as well. And then finally, Oh, Sonia Connolly as well says, I like the idea of terming it more an outdoor gathering space rather than dining as well. And Amy Weishart from the library just wants to mention that at the library, they're planning to expand the outdoor seating on the lawn this summer, and that'll include more picnic tables, other seating, encourage people to bring takeout and have meetings and use their Wi-Fi on the lawn. So feel free to reach out to her if we have any questions. Maybe there's a collaboration that could be done as well. Any other comments? And if I'm not seeing you, feel free to unmute yourself if I can't see you.
John, we have a couple of more. Someone asked about accessibility. So maybe that might be a great question for someone from the city to take on accessibility.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. There are examples as well from Ann Ball. There are examples of shade in these spaces, umbrellas strung high across an alley, moss tent structures, standing tents that provide shade. I'm seeing a hand up from Sarah Bowden from Sugar Mags.
Hi, I'm gonna talk because I'm not coordinated enough to text in this chat thing. I'm terrible at this. So listen, here's my one super quick question. Has there been feedback from the two people that own the spaces on either side of the proposed area, being Elizabeth's and the JB Atlantic building? I was just curious. I mean, I think it's super great, but as I've looked through the people that are on the call, I don't see either of those places represented. And so I was just curious, as somebody that wants to make sure everybody's happy in all this, as somebody who's not a restaurant, I love the gathering space, but I'm curious as to what those two people feel, because I feel like that's most of their parking and that's right in their direct space. So that was just my quick question. Thanks.
You want me to address some of these things, or should?
Please, Jenna. Yeah, if you have an answer to that.
I do have an answer to that. I can address accessibility as well. For accessibility, I've talked briefly with the code enforcement officer. Obviously, when we start to like place a lot of these items and materials down there, he'll be there to be able to advise. But some of the big things are being able to, so like if you put these barriers that we've been talking about, concrete barriers or whatever they may be, to leave gaps at your entrances that are 36 inches wide, which is 3 feet, so that a wheelchair can fit through. On either side of the curb cuts, there's ramps that come down, so we're not going to block that at all. That crosswalk will be fully functional, so that you would be able to come down the ramp and that you would be able to have access to turn into the space if you had a wheelchair. On the Store Street side, we're looking at doing the same exact thing where the space to enter would be that width. So there shouldn't be too much. In terms of the tables that we've been talking about, at least one, if not two, would be handicap accessible. And we actually, the Public Works has experience creating ADA accessible picnic tables. They have a few down at Harbor Park. So we would at least one, if not two or more, be down there. So hopefully that addresses some of the ADA questions. If there's anything else that's more specific, happy to discuss that after. We have looked at umbrellas as providing shade, to Peter's point about it being hot. They have bases on them that are about like 50 to 75 pounds of concrete. So we're hoping that the wind would not be able to lift that out if it was put into the concrete block or barrier or base that it's in. But certainly, and they are the ones that you can manually open and close yourself. So if it is a windy day, perhaps we go down and close them so that they don't blow away. But definitely thoughts were generated around like a sail, you know, the shade sails that they have and things like that. So certainly can look further into those ideas. And then Sarah's point, we did speak to the property owner of Elizabeth. We spoke to Elizabeth herself, And I've spoken to all 4 lawyers that are upstairs in the lawyer's office. They are going to be my eyes and ears on this project. They're super into it and really excited about having this space be so close to them. And then on the other side with JB Atlantic building, I do have an email into Bill Sanborn, who is the building owner. And we do know that Heart of Ellsworth is one of the occupants of that space. So we can hear from them on how they feel about having this space next door to them, but I think that they'd be pretty excited about it. And so I think we have our bases covered, but I'm willing to speak to, you know, more businesses, just like this forum is allowing us to do now. So hopefully, I don't know if that answered all the ones I was supposed to touch on, but hopefully it did.
Thank you, Jenna. Betsy Arnson wanted to pose a point for consideration of deliveries to coordinate with merchant deliveries already scheduled on Store Street. That goes back to your barriers you were talking about, I believe, Jenna. Kelsey Gorge poses a great question. There's an agreement with Peter that there should be covering for the sun. But also the other question, which restaurants and businesses would actually take advantage of this? Who would manage the schedule? What hours would the space be available? Would it have access to water, electricity, heat lamps? Would there be a temporary counter for food service? If so, what does this require? So this gets into a lot of complicated issues, and that's one of the primary reasons that we wanted to open up this forum for communication. So with that, are there some businesses that have any thoughts to this? If you are a business in downtown, how might you use the space? How might it help you? I also see a hand up from Toko, so you can respond to this or not.
My question or statement goes back to Sarah with the issue of parking on the side street. Something that we noticed the past 2 summers, a majority of our business from out of town is just passing through on Route 1. And maybe this, in addition, now there could be better signage for the parking lots, like something directing people to the lot, either at City Hall or, because we get that question all the time. Like, I wanted to stop, but there's nowhere to park, assuming that the street spots are all that we have. So maybe even with this, taking away spots, it might not be a bad idea.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more direct responses as well to Kelsey's question about how would businesses use this space? To get things flowing, I own Fogtown Brewing Company. We're a couple blocks off of Main Street, so we wouldn't obviously directly use the space, but I know that the more people that come and want to stop downtown and spend some time here will indirectly, if not directly, help our business. Are there businesses who feel similarly or think that there might be a direct usage that you'd love to use the space for your business?
Nick, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, thanks, Peter. Peter's my conscience today. Thank you, man. I'm talking. The Grand wouldn't directly use it, but what an amazing enhancement to all the people that come down to events at the Grand. So we're talking about 30,000 times in a good year, people come downtown, and to have the wonderful ability to walk around and really enjoy being downtown and all the wonderful food and shopping as they're attending an event, I think is phenomenal.
Thank you, Nick. While people are thinking as well, just Sarah made a comment asking if dogs would be allowed. Great question. Also, could HCTC, this is from Linda Burgess, local scouting troops or other local resources be utilized for various needs? So, you know, what other organizations could we partner with, et cetera? Great questions all around. Phyllis Young, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I've been enjoying this talk. It's been very informative. I was in Ellsworth when we built the playground for the first time up near Knowlton Park. And there was a lot of talk amongst, the community. How would it be used? Would it be used? And I've been, and I was able to toss a hammer and nail and everything to help build that with my children. And I've been just impressed over the many, many years that has had some transformations, but you can't go by there and not see someone using that space. And I kind of envision that with this downtown space as well. And as far as, putting the structure and food service and so forth, I see this space more of a gathering space, and people can bring their food there and so forth and so on. And particularly as Jana and Glenn said, that this year is kind of like a launch of this space, and to begin to really think about not only this year's use of it, but long term, and that may morph and it may change, and it can grow more robust. But the first step into it is to get all of the dynamics in place and all of those nuts and bolts, and then we can learn, just like Ann and Nate have told us that people learn in their first year's experience, and they can develop it further in the future.
Some more from the comment box. Anne says, as Nick was alluding to, giving people opportunity to stay longer in your downtown is a win-win for all. As a person who loves to travel, and this is from Lorena, to other cities, some of my favorite memories involve spending time outside in public spaces, seeing people hanging out, playing instruments, reading the paper. So also the question from Betsy Arnson, we would also need to have lavatories or porta potties. So this is a big question. Before we get into what kind of activities in the space, maybe this goes back to Jana. Has there been talk or thought about porta potties or some sort of restrooms in the facility?
We have not added that to our list or budgeted for additional porta potties down in that area. Our thought is that if you're going to be doing, takeout or going to another business in the downtown, perhaps that's where you can use the restroom. The city does have a public restroom that is accessible from the police side of City Hall that is designated for public use. Of course, that's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. So limited schedule there. But no, we have not looked into an additional porta potty down in that space.
Are there any thoughts from business owners in that area in terms of public restrooms? Would that be helpful if you are a Main Street business? Do you find that people are coming in to use your restroom? Is that helpful? Is that a hindrance to you? Any comments there?
I'll jump in and just say, as a when I'm traveling, the first thing I look for when I stop downtown in a beautiful little city is, where's the restroom? And then you go eat, right? You go eat to use the restroom. But to have, I just think of Belfast, right? When I go to Belfast to go down to the harbor, they have those public restrooms right there in the harbor. That might be something for the city to consider, is a dedicated public restroom complex. Yeah.
Being 2 doors down from where that will be, even without it, we get asked over and over and over where to find the public restrooms. And people are pretty surprised that we don't have them too. So I think that is something that will come up even more so with more people around.
Thank you. That's very helpful information.
You're welcome.
There's also some more comments from Lorena, options for bike rack, performance space, a geocache site, little free library, play area, Wi-Fi as well. Anne, I see a hand going up.
I just want to comment on the restroom issue and refer back to your city manager's comment about incremental. All of the work that you guys do and want to do in your downtown, and through this public-private partnership with the city and Heart of Ellsworth, everybody wants it to happen overnight, but it truly is an incremental process. It involves, complex budgets, lots of stakeholders. And I totally understand. Rockland dealt with this most recently and did end up putting in restrooms for public. So it's good to talk about it and try to work through it. But it is about incremental change. And so adding this outdoor gathering space is, another way to activate your downtown. And then what comes next? Maybe it's, a grant to Project Canopy to get trees to really build out that space more long-term. Restrooms, it will come. And there will come a time when it has to be addressed, but it's great to have the conversation and the issues out on the table. But I just want to commend you all for thinking about it in the way you are.
Other thoughts? And I'm sorry if I'm not seeing you. Feel free to just unmute yourself and blurt out at this point. Jared, yeah.
Another thing too, an angle just to consider is Maine Department of Transportation. And if you're thinking of this as a space that's promoting pedestrianization and active transportation, and how, well, they're no longer called Tiger, I think they're called Build, and who knows what the acronym will be once the administration decides to take ownership of, again, every time we get a new president, we get a new Federal Highway Administration acronym. But that is a great resource to use towards the bricks and mortars of not just the space itself, but also a larger network of getting people to that space. And so that's a good resource as well. And it's still the Build grant, correct, Jana? Am I getting it right? I should know. But it was Tiger before, and now it's Build. But that's a really good resource. And Maine DOT, especially Patrick Adams, is a great resource to reach out to talk about what funding exists for this. And I'm just going to put in a little plug for myself, a little bit of self-promotion. Hancock County Planning Commission, where I work, does have a landscape architect and urban design on staff, and we are at the public service. This is what I used to do. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you, Jared. Peter.
It's funny that Jared just mentioned that. I was going to tell Jana, when I'm doing Taste of Ellsworth and I'm putting trees and flowers and everything, a great sponsor has been Elizabeth, who owns Hiltz. And she is always incredibly generous and cooperative in lending trees, and that might be a resource you might want to use.
Yeah,
Because
actually,
I think she's going to benefit very well from having this park next to her store. She was always very thrilled that we did Taste of Ellsworth.
yeah, so when I spoke with her last week, she mentioned that to me, and she said, when you're putting together your planting plan, please come see me, and I'm happy to give any advice. So thanks for bringing it up, Peter. And yep, she's on my radar for sure. And I look forward to working with her on that. Should be fun.
And Jana, when we talked yesterday, you have put some thought and consideration into the trash removal. You were telling me that you've been reaching out to a company and so forth and so on.
Yeah, so I'll give you the little info on that, and then actually I'm going to put a plug in for myself. So yes, we're looking at having a company that helps maintain some of our other Knowlton Park and Harbor Park come. However, they're only able to support us probably once per day in taking out the trash. And making sure that some of the tables in the space is just tidied and cleaned up. That's probably going to be closer to the evening hours. And so what I've done around here is started to talk to staff within City Hall and some of the businesses out onto Main Street, including the lawyer's office that I spoke to. I talked to Darren from Prevender, and just basically saying, this is all of our project. This is all of our backyards. So your eyes and your ears are going to be really, really important to making this all function and work. Yes, we're going to have someone who's going to come maintain the trash and someone who's going to like look at the space once per day. I'm lucky enough to have probably one of the best views from my office of that space. The lawyer's office has a really great view as well. So if something's happening down there, if, for example, we plan on putting sanitization stations down there, we plan on putting some supplies to be able to clean the space if, you know, something happens down there, there's a spill or whatever. If those supplies are out, please call or email me. If like, you know, the trash is overflowing or, you know, somebody damaged the flowers, you know the list. There's going to be a ton of different things that probably are going to come up. So what I'm asking for is you don't have to physically do it yourself unless you want to, but to also just communicate with me and make sure that I'm in the know so that if the space isn't functioning to its greatest and highest potential in the way that we want it to, I'm going to be relying on a lot of you to help out with that. So that's the plug on making this very communal and for your help, basically. Like, yes, we all want this to happen and we all wish it to happen. But we should also like make sure that we think that it's your backyard and you're cleaning it up. If somebody threw a bunch of trash over your backyard fence, you would clean it up. You'd be aggravated and agitated, but you would clean it up. And so that's sort of what I'm looking for from all of you, from the businesses, and also from the city. You know, when I've talked to Public Works, when I've talked to Steve Joyle, who does our facility maintenance, and I told them what the idea was for the project, they were like, awesome, let us know how we can help. And that's a great attitude to have for this. And we're really, I think it's kind of like adding to the excitement that this is actually going to work. And I think that, you know, I'm just really excited. So yes, we have a plan for some of the maintenance of trash and cleanup, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a communal effort as well.
Thank you so much, Jana. It is just a couple minutes here before the hour, and we're going to bring the call to a close with just a few minutes for last minute, bits of conversation. But rest assured, we're copying down all of the chat box here. There are some really great questions and ideas, questions about whether this will be paired with the Ellsworth Green Plan, how we're going to take care of recycling returnables, and just general excitement about the opportunity. It seems that we've shifted away from a conversation about a food court and more toward a lasting community space with some user-friendly, activities and amenities involved there. So this is really, really exciting. And thank you so much for, putting the work in for everybody who's involved and to everybody from the community for making your voices heard. We'll keep the call open for the next couple of minutes in case anybody has some last minute comments or questions.
I'm going to comment that I'm really excited that this is occurring because, this is showing that Ellsworth is wanting to go in a direction that, one, fits with the larger aspirations of many of the funding elements in the state of Maine, but two, this is making public space and the kinds of public spaces that are really going to make Ellsworth go bam on the map. So exciting. Yay. This is so fun. Go get them. You go get them, Jenna. You go get them, Tara. You go get them, everybody else. And I'm glad that Ann Ball is here because I love working with you, Ann Ball. And we're going to be talking about a certain town in Washington County that would like us to do a comp plan, downtown master plan continuation. So we'll be in touch. No, like this is like so awesome and I'm so excited. Oh yeah, Glenn, I'm sorry you're here too. Oh, my bad. But no, this is great. So keep up the energy. And I really can't wait to see what this is going to look like in the end. So cool. All right, I'm going to mute myself again because I will do that.
Can anybody top Jared's excitement?
I will. I say this is been almost on my radar screen for a long time. I'm the president of the part of Ellsworth, and we've worked hard, to conceptualize that space through our Taste of Ellsworth project. I think I've been a resident in Ellsworth, except for the years I lived away, like 10 or 12 years. But I was born here, and I said, making Ellsworth even greater than the great city it is always been on my radar screen. And I want to thank John Stein for leading the talk today. Thank you, John.
And can I add, we came to Ellsworth 2 years ago. There was something about Ellsworth we loved that drew us in, and we opened our shop there. And now we actually have purchased one of the Beals buildings across the street. So we're closing on that on Monday, and we're going to do something else over there. So we are so excited about this project, everything that makes that little downtown grow, and we're happy to be a part of it in any way that we can help. We live there in the summer months upstairs and can be eyes as well. And so, yeah, we couldn't be more happy about this. So.
All right, that brings us to 1 p.m. Thank you to Glenn and Jana from the city. We really appreciate you and all the work you've done, being on the call. Nat as well, and Anne, the Maine Downtown Association. Thank you so much for all of your help and for being on the call as well. Again, keep those great ideas coming. Questions and comments, they can go to Jana directly or to cara@heartofellsworth.org. I'm sorry. And thanks again. Have a great sunny day, everybody.